Welcome to the AACFB's 2022 Meet the Funder webinar series. My name is Monica Harper. I'm the Executive Director of the AACFB and I will be your host. Our presenter today is Vicki Rocco from Entegra Capital. Entegra is both a funding source member and a gold sponsor of the AACFB, and I'd like to thank them for their support of the association. Before I introduce Vicki, I'd like to go over a few items to make this webinar more enjoyable and informative for everyone. During the presentation, you should see a Q&A box that allows you to ask questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit your questions in the box and they should be answered by the end of the webinar. Please reserve the chat for communication between attendees. The entire webinar should take no more than 30 to 45 minutes. And for those of you who'd like to review it at a later date, it will be posted on the 2022 Meet the Funder page of the AACFB website, and it will be emailed out to the membership. At this time, I turn it over to Vicki. It's all yours.
Thanks, Monica. And thanks to everybody attending today. We should be able to get through this pretty quickly. And I'll just say up front, if we are a funding source that you're interested in kind of getting a deeper dive and more information on, feel free to reach out to me after this. Also, I will stay on once we kind of get through all of the information that I put together to share with you today. And I'm happy to stay on and answer questions as long as you have questions to ask. So with that, I will get started. Just kind of a small overview of Entegra Capital. We are a small ticket funding source. We are independently owned. We only work as a direct funding source. We actually hold and service everything that we finance. So we are really handling your customers from the time you submit an application through when they pay off their lease. We were established in 2016, really started developing a larger base around 2018, but our management team pretty much comes from an old Sunbridge Capital crowd. So several of us worked at Sunbridge Capital, and those of you who have been in the industry for a while may remember that because Sunbridge was pretty active back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. We are not a generalist. We really specialize in transportation and construction. And we have a proprietary scoring model. And essentially what that model does is it gives us an additional way of looking at any application that comes to us. We don't make a final decision based off of that, but it is something that we take into account. There are 22 or so data points that we look at. And that can help inform our decision. So our scoring model will give us a suggestion, but our credit team actually handles every application that comes through. And so we have a common sense approach to it as well. Another thing I wanted to make sure and mention is that we source 100% of our applications from the broker community. That's why our involvement with organizations like the AACFB is so important to us, because you are the source of everything that we originate. We will never compete with you. If we have a customer that is a current customer that comes to us and wants to finance an additional asset, we'll refer them back to the broker that originated that deal originally. We occasionally will have dealerships reach out and want to work directly with us. And we have in every instance, and we'll continue to tell the dealers that we only work through our broker partners. We do not have recourse for the broker. We feel that because of our scoring model and because we're the ones underwriting the deal, once the transaction is funded, we take responsibility for it. So we're not going to ask to come back to you. There may be an instance where if we have a problem contacting a lessee after the fact, we may come back to the broker and ask for any additional contact information they may have or engage them in trying to help us get a hold of them. But we are 100% dedicated to maintaining these broker relationships and understand the importance of not competing for the same business with you. One thing I also want to add, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, our approach is not that, we want to have 1,000 brokers that we're working with. We would rather have a small, amount of brokers that we have deeper partnerships with. So we want to take the time up front to get to know you and anticipate you doing the same, and the brokers really being able to rely on us as a partner. So while we are small ticket, and while there is a certain amount of automation in app only, we're always here available and ready to answer the phone, answer questions, or talk through a particular deal with you. And so I wanted to kind of tick through some of the basics that I'm typically asked about our program. We are an asset-based funder. As I said, we specialize in the transportation and construction markets. So there are really three things that any app package we're going to look at and we need information on. We are going to look at the asset. We're going to look at the company itself, and we're going to look at the owners of the company or the guarantors on the deal. One thing I highly suggest, because the asset itself plays into our underwriting, it's super important for us that we get complete specs with the app package. So typically when submitting an application to us, we would get a signed application, an invoice, specs, and any other information that the broker wants to provide. Those specs will inform the down payment in some instances. So we have, and we'll go into this a little bit later, but those specs can play a big role in how the asset is valued by our credit team. I remember in my first couple of weeks here at Entegra, I was kind of cross training in some other departments and was working on valuations, and it was amazing to me the difference in the valuation that would come back if there was fairings or if there was aluminum wheels, and all of those things can play a big role in that valuation coming back and matching the invoice price on the asset. So please always send complete specs, because you're going to get better terms for your customer. We do have an approved asset list since we're not a generalist, and all of that information is included in our broker package that I'm happy to send out if you email me at the end of this. But in general, we will consider class 4 to 8 trucks. We will do sleepers, long hauls. Okay. We do not have fleet requirements. Trailers, very, very general and wide on what we'll consider, but the majority of the trailers that we see coming through, a lot of roofers, a lot of dry van trailers, that type of thing. We'll also do car haulers. And again, those are all outlined in our approved asset list. We'll do vocational equipment, so tow trucks, garbage trucks, concrete trucks, all of that flow directly into our approved assets, and are something that we have a lot of in our portfolio. So it's something that we understand. On the construction side, we also will look for earth moving equipment. We'll do cranes, we'll do bobcats and smaller excavators, that type of thing. But for the most part, I would say, as much as we would love to get more construction equipment in our portfolio, I think we're kind of known as a transportation funding source, and it's in our DNA. We have a lot of expertise in that area, and so it's something that we do a high volume. On the trailers, we are looking at 2014 or newer for flatbed, dry van, or reefer trailers. Reefer trailers, we do limit. They need to be under 15,000 hours. For any other type of trailer, we're looking at 2016 or newer. On trucks, we are asking that they be 2016 or newer. And for the most part, 2016 is our baseline on anything that we'll consider. We do have a special program in place on a couple of ends of the spectrum of FICO that if your customer qualifies for those, we would request that the equipment be 2018 or newer. But again, all of that's outlined in our broker information, and happy to send that out. As far as mileage restrictions, for class 4 or 5, 400,000 miles or less, and class 6 through 8, which again, big portion of what we review are class 8 trucks. And on those, our max mileage is 650,000. Construction, again, 2016 or newer. As far as the business and the ownership of the business, we're looking for a minimum of 1.5 years time in business. We will consider owner operators, and we are willing to underwrite deals that are in the lower 48. So we exclude Alaska and Hawaii. Although I've said I'm happy to go repo a truck in Hawaii, I have not gotten that through yet. So right now we are strictly doing the 48 states. As far as the ownership information, we have programs for anywhere from 600 and up FICOs. Our primary program is going to start at 635 and up, but we do have a special program for those FICOs in the range of 600 to 635, and that would require a 2018 or newer piece of equipment. We do a hard pull. We pull Experian FICO 2, and so that is the score that we will use in underwriting. We do need 100% of the ownership to be on the application. We will consider, as long as a bankruptcy has been discharged at least 3 years prior, we'll consider it. We do not have a citizenship requirement, but they do need to have a social security number so that we can pull credit. In order for us to be able to consider a deal, we need to be able to pull credit on them. We also, a hard no is going to be if a felony comes up on their account. When we do the credit pull and background, pull background information. So if there's a felony, it needs to have been at least 20 years, and for the most part is going to be a hard decline. For financing over 50,000, we do ask for 3 months of bank statements. However, we can stipulate that we need those bank statements. We need to receive them before we can fund. And part of that is in response to feedback that we've gotten from brokers that we work with. We're trying to help you take the deal off the street. And in order to do that, if you don't have some information like the bank statements, then we're willing to make that a credit contingency so that we would collect that before we would be willing to fund the deal. For financing that's over 150,000, and that's the financed amount, we would then require financials or the most recent tax returns in order to return a decision to you. And when I say financed amount, it could be a $175,000 deal. And if they're putting $25,000 down on it, we'd have a financed amount of 150,000 and would not require financials on that deal. Our approval ranges, commission, you can build up to 10 points into any deal. Our rates, I always get this question. Right now, our rates range from the 9s to the high 20s. Our average rate is going to be in the mid to high teens. Terms typically are going to be available 36 to 60 months. There may be a max term limit put in place depending on the age of the asset. And really that's going to be determined by the expected lifespan of the equipment. And if it's older, we want to make sure that it's still going to be in service by the time the end of the lease comes up. We only offer leases. So the two options are a track lease with a 10 to 20% residual, or in some instances, deal will qualify for conditional sale. And probably it's split pretty much half and half on the two types of leases that we write. Our standard down payment is 20%. We do have some special programs in place. Like I said, one is for the 600 to 635 tranche, and that is going to have a larger down payment associated with it, but it opens up kind of that 600 to 635 group for us so that we can offer an approval. The other end of that, if they have a 725 FICO or better, and the assets to 2018 or newer, we have a program to offer a 10% down to those customers, and that's been very successful. We've had a lot of movement in that program. So we're always looking for ways that we can provide better value to you and your customers. And this again is something that we put together based on feedback, in working with the brokers that are currently sending us business. One thing also that I would want to note is that, and I don't know if you noticed, but back on a previous slide, I said, make sure and send us specs because it can impact the down payment. The down payment standard is going to be 10 or 20%, or up to 40% for some of those lower FICO customers. But if an asset's out of value, so if the invoice that's being submitted to us is out of line by more than a threshold that we put in place, then we may increase that down payment requirement to offset some of that. Things that can impact it, doesn't always, but are things like FET, that type of thing. So if it's a brand new asset, it may or may not have some sort of additional down payment required just to offset that increase in compared to the information that our credit team comes up when they're evaluating the asset. As far as our processes, we do have a portal. It is optional to use. There's a lot of benefit. Even if a broker doesn't want to take the time to enter an application into the portal, there's a side of our portal called Term Builder, and that's really beneficial for brokers to that are working with us to log into, because once you have an approval, you're able to go in and structure your own terms. You can see kind of a deeper dive on what type of information we considered, or the time in business that we were able to prove, that type of thing. It also will let you adjust your points. It'll let you adjust the type of lease. If multiple types are available, it will let you adjust the residual. And you can actually propose, create multiple proposal structures and send them directly out of this Term Builder product. So it gives you a lot of great information, and is available 24/7. So you're not waiting for credit to revise the terms for you and give you, a different option. We do use DocuSign. COVID hit us just like it did everybody else, and we kind of upgraded our systems. So all of our contracts go out through DocuSign. They are sent to the broker first. So the broker reviews the contract once docs have been requested, and either approves it or sends it back to us and says, nope, this is wrong and needs to be changed. But once the broker approves the DocuSign contract, then it is sent to the various guarantors and through the process back to us for final signature. We also, about a year ago, started using an e-notary service, or offering an e-notary service called Notarize. There is a small fee that the customer would pay if they want to use that service. So again, we provide options. We've had a lot of adoption of this e-notary product because once the customer does the online notarization, it is sent directly back to us. So it can happen very quickly as opposed to printing out the page that needs to be notarized, taking it, getting a wedding signature, and then overnighting it back to us. So that's been very successful and is available on every deal. We have our system set up so that once docs have been requested, there are a lot of automated notifications, checklists that are sent back to the broker every time docs, some portion of the docs package comes in, whether it's insurance or other types of information that are sent back to us. Our docs team will review it and either check it off of the checklist or note on the checklist, here's what needs to be corrected. And then that updated checklist is sent back to the broker. So you always have a complete list of everything that's outstanding. That has been an organizational godsend for us. So we have a great way to keep the broker updated. That checklist also includes essentially a public link for the broker to upload additional documents directly into our system rather than sending them by email. So again, doing what we can to create as much efficiency in the process and make life easier for our broker partners, as well as on the processes here internally. We do install GPS on all of our assets for trucks and most equipment. It's going to be a wired unit. On trailers, we do install wireless GPS, but those are all scheduled directly between our GPS partner is Sperian. So once we have a GPS request into them, they are then scheduling that install directly with the dealer or seller of the equipment. And when people ask how long does it take to go from application to funding, the majority of the time is really dependent upon how quickly we get correct documents, correct information back from the customer. The one thing that kind of, I would say, is a bigger impact on that timeline is getting that GPS installed. So for us, we are always proactive in asking if it's time, if the dealer's ready for us to have that done. And typically a GPS can be installed within a couple of days. But we do have some workarounds. We understand, and especially being specializing in this transportation market over the last few years, with the scarcity of equipment and everything that we've gone through, particularly since COVID, we understand that it's important to get deals funded quickly. And so we work with our brokers in lockstep, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to speed that process up, while still mitigating risk and making sure that, our audit trail is clean. We do pay commission at funding. We wire the broker commission the same time we wire funds to the dealer. And again, the broker is controlling what that commission is when the deal is structured. Here's my contact information. I'm happy to have private conversations after with any brokers that are not currently set up with us that would like more information about our program or to send out our broker guide. And at this time, I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
And just a reminder, please type your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get them answered. Vicki, I don't know if you saw the first question from Clifford is about dual submissions and how you handle those.
Yeah, so there are times where we may get the same application from multiple brokers. Our policy, whether it is, multiple submissions from different brokers or vendor exclusivity. Our policy is that we allow the customer to determine who they want to work through. So we will process both submissions. Typically, I've seen them come in a day or two apart. And when I see one, I will notify the brokers involved that, hey, we have a duplicate submission on this, but we do not direct the customer on which broker they have to work with. So basically, we let the market handle itself.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions. Does anyone have any other questions? Please type them in now. We'll give them just a minute to do that.
All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more about Entegra Capital, and would be very happy to talk with you after this call.
So that wraps things up. There's no more questions. We'll end the webinar. A big thanks to all our participants and especially our valued funding source member and gold sponsor, Entegra Capital. Thanks for a great job. We invite everyone to meet with Entegra Capital in person at our annual conference next May in Portland, Oregon. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks, Monica.